Seriously, good evening. Like, unmuted myself and then remuted myself for no reason. Welcome to an impromptu LAWhammer live stream in our normal Friday slot, but we're not streaming the actual play tonight because a number of the cast are struck down with COVID and various other illnesses and are in various stages of convalescence. So we say go bedding or get well soon to all of them. I'm slightly distracted this evening, hence the Norwegian, because on TikTok, where I talk about rookery stuff and etymology stuff, someone asked me to look into the origins of Fife, and I've gone down this rabbit hole of going back to the original Old Norse version of the Orkneyinga saga to find out when Fife was first mentioned by the Old Norse, and yeah, so sorry in advance.
Yes.
And when was that?
Well, so you'll have to follow me on TikTok to find out in part one. So yeah, well, at the moment I'm not sure. So we're going backwards. We found that the Orkneyinga saga, which interestingly, when it talks about Fife, no, this is not interesting. We're gonna have to stop right now. See, you got me talking about it. Hello, everyone. Please, we're here for an Ask Us Anything. You have myself, Lindsay, you have Andy Leask, and you have Sage. You will see on the screen the characters that we play. Andy and Sage, would you like to say hello?
Hello.
Please don't say no. Please say more than hello.
What would you like us to say? Like hello. I'm hoping we get some interesting questions from the chat. We genuinely haven't prepped anything. So this is even more famously unprepared than our rookery streams regularly are. So, yeah.
Here we go. Well, we've got the first question in. So, Hirin.
That's a good point. I've only ever read it in my head.
Yeah, me too. And I always read it as Hirin, which doesn't make any sense because that's two different vowels there. But they're in two different places in the word. So who am I to say? So evening all, with how integrated the characters are into both the plot and the wider Warhammer world, it'd be great to hear about your experiences of the character creation process. Do we want to start with Andy, a very experienced old hand of both Warhammer and character creation, or do we want to start with Sage, who is experienced in character creation but less so in Warhammer than the others?
I don't mind.
Well, I didn't introduce myself, so I will do that and continue on to answer the question. I'm Sage, if you didn't know. I play Yume, Tsume, Ume, whatever variation of Ume rhyming words that you want for my character. She's a Ranelden and a Nipponese person in our stream, obviously. I've played TTRPGs for a long time, but I was new to Warhammer before the stream. So my idea of character creation was more about the kind of story and the kind of character that I wanted to play, not necessarily how it fitted into the world. And I cheated because I just got Andy Lowe to help me make sure it all made sense in world. So I think I also joined a little bit later. So I was very conscious of making sure that we had a good kind of range of characters in the stream as well. So I didn't want to play the same as somebody else. So felt like as much as we had a sneaky elf, we didn't have a sneaky human, and I thought that would be helpful. And then obviously the Nipponese side is because I'm half Japanese. I wanted to play that multicultural culture shock sort of angle of being someone from a different country. So yeah, that's me.
Cool. And it definitely added like a lot to the party. I think having that very different character background, you really do get that sense of sometimes you're just chatting very casually about things that to people in the Empire are like, what the hell are you talking about? So that is heresy, burner. For me, what was very different about the LAWhammer process compared to normal is, like, ordinarily I'm a big fan in Andy's games. He's a big fan of really leaning into the random nature of things in terms of rolling up, like everything randomly with the option of, picking to fix things if you want to, but largely random. Whereas with this, there was a lot more consideration about what roles we were going to be playing. Like Andy had kind of already decided that he wanted to have like a Sigmarite warrior priest, and he wanted to have an elf, he wanted to have ideally a dwarf. bright wizard, the various kind of archetypes that we kind of belong to. And there was a little bit, once the initial iteration of the party was in place, it was a bit of like horse trading in terms of who would be willing to play what, who was up for which characters. And Lindsay and I kind of both volunteered to kind of be relatively low down the order in terms of choosing, because we were kind of happy to play quite a lot of stuff. So yeah, that was a bit different. And then also Andy then played that into things like Chaotic Bloods, and they were a little bit less random. We were allowed to kind of choose within those as well, which gave us a bit of control over our characters. And obviously, if you think about where Leopold has ended up moving from warrior priest into augur, like all of that is because of one Chaotic Blood that I picked during character creation. It was down to an argument of semantics between Andy and I, where I was convinced that priests should have intuition rather than perception as a starting skill. He disagreed. I argued he could not be persuaded. So I took a Chaotic Blood that would give me intuition as a basic skill so that I could have intuition because I felt my character needed it. But in doing that, that also gave him visions of the future, which is what then led him down the path to becoming an augur, which shows, although it wasn't random, that could have been random. And that's one of the things I think Chaotic Bloods kind of add to your campaign, is that potential for very different character development. So, yeah.
As always, I'll take the super chats and the cheers first. I'm not as good at noticing the cheers because they don't come up in a different color in the comments, but I will keep an eye out for them and just poke me repeatedly if I don't bring up your cheer from Twitch. So Watchdog says, "Hi, good to see you're all free from Nurgle's grasp." We are indeed. Were your PCs the first that came to you, or did you have others that did not make it? So for me, Andy wanted me to play an elf, and he had a very clear idea in his mind of what he wanted that elf character to be. And so for me, I had a few ideas of what I was keen to play, and I was very keen to play an elf because I've never really played an elf in a serious long-term campaign. I really wanted to do it. So as soon as he started talking about LAWhammer, I was like, I want to play the elf. I want to play the elf. I want to play the elf. And I just kept on saying that until he said, I was always going to let you play the elf. Whether that's true or not, we'll never know. But some of my other PCs who I would have liked to have played, I have played in side streams. So Manfreda, Hotfoot, Manfreda, Trethaway, the gnome, absolutely love Fred. I would have been quite happy to play Fred in an ongoing campaign because she's a brilliant character. But I am over the moon with Amenawith and how she's turned out. And there's a question that we'll come to after, which the answer is not as simple as Daniel L. thinks it's going to be. And that's what I love about playing her most, is that everything's another layer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was wondering whether your idea of the elf you had in your mind was going to be the same as who she ended up being, because there's been lots of changes and like updates about the rules as well, right? So that always changes stuff. I was going to add, when Andy mentioned like chaotic blood traits, I think my divine servant might have been like coming out of that as well, and that was totally rolled at random, and it took, I think, Yume in the direction that it is now, and I don't think she necessarily was going to have, this kind of familiar / spiritual friend in the original iteration. So yeah, I think there is. I like the random tables and the additional things that life throws at you, because I feel like it mimics real life, right? You have an idea of who you want to be, and then life happens to you. In terms of my character, I also the other option I was considering was playing a Tilean, some kind of magic user, probably. I don't know. We never really actually got around to it, but it kind of reminded me when Andy spoke to me about the Tileans of the like fake Italy from Seven Seas. Have you played that one?
Yeah, I played Seven Seas a long time ago. Yeah,
when you played Pirates.
Is that the one with they're the weavers, the
fate weavers? Yeah,
the fate weavers. Yeah, I love them.
They use like tarot cards and like fate to do their magic, and it's kind of from their fake Italy. So I was thinking something along those lines, but we never got around to it. Maybe if Yume dies, we'll see.
I think I've got the Fake France book from 7th Sea, and maybe it's in storage, maybe it's in the other room, but I seem to recall the person on the front cover bears a remarkable resemblance to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Man in the Iron Mask. Not saying that's where they got their inspiration from, but... Okay, Carl says, I've DM'd a few long campaigns, but always had to do them in the week. I could never imagine trying to do it on a Friday night. How do you manage to keep your schedules clear to reliably play? Some of us are old, so we just don't have a social life anymore.
I mean, it's worth noting that it kind of had to be either Friday or Saturday for me. Mm-hmm. Because obviously as a teacher, apart from now when I'm on holiday, yay, work Monday to Friday, but I have to get up at like 6:15 in the morning. So if we'd been role playing until like 11:30 the night before, like that's just I need more sleep than that now. In my 40s, I can't.
Previous statement. Some of us are old.
Yeah. So really, it was Friday or Saturday, and Rookery kind of already had the Saturday slot. So it was I think almost always going to be Friday.
I think Friday was better for another. Some of the cast just couldn't do Saturday either. So Friday became the go-to. Yeah. And how do we manage to keep our schedules clear? Is because we all committed to do it. Yeah. So we picked a day that people could do and we just keep that day clear, and we have scheduled, nights off that we plan in advance for people who've got holidays, family commitments, anniversaries, birthdays, etc. Andy's always got a side stream up his sleeve.
Yeah, and plus you said we don't, older people in our cast might not have a social, but it's a very social thing to do with people I like. So why would I not want to spend my Fridays?
Yeah, I say I couldn't have done a single other evening either. None of them would have worked for me. So Fridays worked out quite well. I see some of you are board game fanatics. Do you have a favorite?
Ooh,
well, I mean, obviously, the 2nd edition of Dark Deeds. Please pre-order that. The Minifia's website right now.
Shall I fetch a pre-order link for people? Shall I do that?
Go on then. I love. What board games do I like? I might have to think about that. Sage, do you have a favorite?
I don't know. I kind of just get dragged along to board game nights. Recently, we've been playing a lot of Spirit Island and King's Dilemma. Spirit Island is you play as indigenous people of an island, and colonial people come and try and take over, and you play as the gods of the spirits of the island, protecting the people there, which is really good. I would recommend. And King's Dilemma is more like you're a council, helping the king make decisions and often making the wrong decisions. It's got a cool mechanic.
Spirit Island is my favorite game. It's so good.
Thanks, there you go. Yeah.
I think for me, board games, there are some board games that I do go back to, but I would say the thing with board games is that it depends what you need them for, who's round, how long you've got, who you're playing them with. So they all have. I like a game like Quirkle, just as a short game that you can play that doesn't rely on words that everyone can kind of get. But I personally love a word game, and I also love a game that has pictures and then you have to use words, which is Dixit, because I think that game's amazing. But it can be a bit. I like playing Dixit with kids who, once they work out that they can use the slang and the concepts and the things that they like our kids like certain animes that we'd never watched, they realize that they can totally fuck you up on your turn by just scoring points together. And I like to watch that dawning of realization in people's eyes.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I like games where the mechanics kind of fit the theme very nicely. So that one there, that's Star Wars Rebellion. It takes freaking 4 or 5 hours to play, and it's a 2-player game, so I don't get to play it very often. But I absolutely love it. It's original trilogy, Star Wars, one of you's the Empire, one of you's the Rebels. It's asymmetric, you've got very different win conditions, and it just feels very true to the kind of spirit of those movies. Similarly, the Star Trek deck builder game, I think, does a very similar thing. So yeah, those would probably be my choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we played Alone and Not Alone. You know, the sci-fi board games where on one side you play a crew trying to run away from an alien, and on the other side you play the alien, or what one person plays the monster. I think that also really fits the theme. I like the way they add a lot of tension to the way the game is run. Sometimes, you know, board games miss that sort of like, I don't know, time element.
Or at the opposite end of the spectrum, it still does the same thing, but not about tension, but the opposite. But it came up on my Facebook memories the other day, Lindsay, but viticulture. Which is like a worker placement game, but it's about like you're kind of making wine. So you got vineyards,
and selling wine,
making wine,
over
selling wine, planting grapes, and it's just I just love it. It's really sedate, and I still have this pipe dream that at some point we will all go off on holiday together to a vineyard somewhere in Spain, Italy, France, doesn't really matter. Drink wine and play viticulture. That still seems like a good idea to me. So
it doesn't really matter. You're going to Italy if you're going to a vineyard.
So we've got some friends of the stream who do that with games. So their best one that they got engaged in Carcassonne while playing Carcassonne, but they went to Bruges and played Bruges while watching the film Bruges. It's just like layers and layers of Brugesiness. Sorry. Tiblam, pronounced as a French. I don't know how to pronounce it in French. Sage, do you know? Tiblam. Tiblom. Tiblom.
Yeah. That sounds more like Norwegian.
Yeah. You can just go with source. Hey, Lindsay, you didn't ask the first question about your character integration. Also, what would be your dream equipment? No breastplates accepted. Let me go back to that first one. Oh, yeah, my experience of the character creation process and the wider Warhammer world. I think for me, the process of character creation for Amenawith is never stopped and is ongoing due to the peculiar nature of Amenawith. I think there's kind of an agreement between Andy and I that's something that might not work for other people, but works for us. And that is that because she's so complicated, and because elves are different to humans, and I am a human and elves are imaginary creatures. Obviously, I don't think like an elf or act like an elf. I just pretend to be one. But there are certain aspects of being an elf in Warhammer that Andy and I talked about that we want to replicate in like a fun and fresh and like exciting way, both for the viewers, the other players, and for us. And so because of that, there are certain aspects of Amenawith that are still continually under development, that sometimes when I'm lying as Amenawith, I don't know I'm lying because I'm not a great person at coup type board games, at bluffing games. So sometimes with consent, Andy, there'll be certain things that I'll say or do that are just not true. And then later on, I'll find out reasons for those. So for me, the character integration was really about going back over the basics of elves in Warhammer, the basics of history. I've got loads of notes from when we talked about it, getting like a broad brushstroke understanding of who she was before, because that's all she has. She doesn't know in detail who she was before, so that's all I needed. And that was really, really good, because otherwise, like, how do you crush like hundreds or thousands of years of experience into a starting character with the same starting experience as everybody else and a limited amount of time for Andy Law and I to talk about it? So it's ongoing and it's really good fun. What would be my dream equipment? Oh, I don't know. A rune fang. Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. I mean, I think for Leopold, like a Mjolnir style runic hammer, one that he could like throw and it would come back to his hand, or he could lose and it would come back to his hand. That would be useful given how often he tends to lose equipment.
Yeah, I don't know for you, mate, because like she doesn't really use all that much equipment. Although a second fan, so she could like dual wield fans, would be really cool. I don't think she's strong enough for it though. Strength 27.
Here's a quick question. How do you spell jongleur of the gigs for the expanding list of Alemanowitz epithets? I've got loads of them. They pretty much all alliterate. I've brought out a few, but there's loads more to come. Gigs, in this case, is spelled Gigues, gig, jongleur of the gigs. And it is a French word, but it comes from like Baroque music. So like Bach has a jig at the end of one of his of a piece, but it originally comes from English jig. So like it's a fast piece of music that's in like 6/8 time. And like Alemanowitz, there's like so many layers, like to what a jongleur is and what a jig is, and I wanted them all to be like that.
Nice. So I just assumed it was just jig, but you were just pronouncing it like in
Yeah,
Bretonian
same.
because you were being pretentious. But yeah.
No, not at all. It's an actual musical term. I figured that having had two daughters who've spent, I don't know, the better part of a decade at a specialist music school, I might as well put to good use all of the music theory that I learned to support them in their exams along the way. And what better way to do it than to create some alliterating epithets for an imaginary person?
Quite right.
Exactly. So Lore Master says, my first question for y'all, in Scots we would say use, FYI. My first question for use would be, what is the biggest mystery you're looking forward to resolving in the LAWhammer campaign right now?
How to stay alive long enough to leave with a time.
I mean, like, I suspect, like, for Leopold, obviously, like, the most obvious one is who is it that's just been talking to him in his head, but I think we all know the answer to that, so I think maybe I don't want to find out the answer to that one. Based on chat in our Discord community, and again, if you're watching and you're not on our Discord, do join us and say hi there. There's been a lot of chat about the timelines of what's been going on, and in terms of, like, in Andy's narration, he at one point said Nils was covered in Arthur's blood, but when we went and saw Arthur, there was no, but I don't think we know that as characters, but he said that. So we're like, well, so was that really Arthur? Was that not Arthur? Was that, like, there's some lingering mystery there in terms of timelines, that because we've not been able to find Emberfist, we've not been able to get the timeline pinned down. So that's short term. That's the one that's most, like, pickling my noodle. But yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I would say maybe resolving something like, how is it possible that if you ask an elf, did the gods come first or were the elves born of the gods, they just say yes. Like, I'd quite like to, which maybe goes back to a mystery from our previous game. What is the circular nature of time? That's the mystery I'm hoping that this campaign will solve, because it remains unsolved from a previous one.
A small mystery.
Yeah.
I think we've gone a way towards figuring out what's happened to the Nipponese people in our campaign, but I don't think we've done enough about the Ranaldans. Like, you know, some of them were killed in Altdorf, her friends, but some of them escaped, and she still hasn't found them, and she's not being, like, surreptitious. Like, if people were looking for her, they would have heard about her. So yeah, I'd like to know what happened to them.
Oh, I had another one. The other one I wanted to be solved. Now I've forgotten it. That's so annoying.
Is it the Wolf Palace?
Oh, no, like, it's the mystery of, like, is there only one god walking around on the earth and it's Ladriel? Or are there, like, is Ulrich walking around on the earth? Like, what is the deal with the gods? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of the same as my first one. What is the deal?
We need Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I think Yume would like to know that one as well, because if you've watched the side stream with her and Alemanowitz, you'll know why she wants to know if Ulrich will be coming to say hi anytime soon.
That was great fun, that side stream. I think we're like the Blues Brothers now, but we're the elf sisters.
Yes.
We've Sage and I were concocting a plan today for elaborate disguises to keep. I think sisters would be better than mother and daughter. I think.
Yeah.
So Sean Schultz says, "Is the Andy getting better?" Yes, and no. Yes, he is getting better. It's a long story and a long road, but yes. Where did I get down to? I got down to Lore Masters. Do you think that Elamenowith Rootweaver would register as holy to our two blessed servants, since it appears she was an avatar or at least something similar?
I mean,
well, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Well, unbeknownst to them, they've definitely already met at least one avatar, possibly two, that they didn't automatically see as holy. And you would think an avatar, if they would show up as holy to priests, would be like blazing bright. So I don't think they do.
Although if one of them was the avatar of Ladriel, you could see why they might not show up by their very nature.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what's the other avatar that we might have met?
I'm not telling you. You don't know.
Interesting. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, equally, what would that just mean that they were suffused with Heish, because Birdie shows up as holy to
exactly, and elves who were avatars wouldn't be suffused with Heish mechanically.
Unless they just happened to be using
the avatar, or unless they just happen to be the avatar of an elven god that was only and particularly associated with Heish, and I think that would be unlikely. Laura Master of Sotek, LAWhammer has truly turned into the ultimate Ladriel propaganda. These darn elves trying to take credit for all the old ones' hard work. Shaking my head.
I do want to find out more about what happened with the Nipponese back in the day, because we found out that they were around at the time, and I feel like that's good, controversy against what the elves say about them being there first. So.
Okay, for Andy and Lindsay, sorry, Sage, what have you done to avoid introducing your prior extra Warhammer background knowledge into your characters during play? I just try really hard not to, and when I do accidentally, and it does happen, and often it's because I genuinely try not to. If I do, it's almost always because I've taken notes that don't show clearly that they were something my character didn't learn, and I fucked up. Or I just forget, and then Andy Law punishes me, because that's when he's like, well, I mean, you shouldn't have known that, so I guess Rootweaver's coming back to the surface because she knew a lot of stuff. So I try really hard. I've now got a system in my notes. I try not to use fortune points anymore, because I feel like the luck comes from Rootweaver. I'm really paranoid.
Someone who just watched your side stream, that trying not to use fortune points thing is not going so well, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, I try not to, but I didn't use. If you think she's got 6 fortune points, I very rarely use more than 1 or 2.
Rub it in.
Yeah. And what about you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think the bigger problem I've got is I'm so paranoid about prior knowledge creeping in that I think I'm sometimes not making what are the obvious links.
Yeah.
Because I'm going, oh, do I know that though? And I'm second guessing myself and maybe slightly overcompensating. I mean, what helped particularly, there's a reason Father Leopold is from Ubersreich, right? Because I wrote the guide to Ubersreich. So so that's fine. If I have an unhealthy level of knowledge about Ubersreich, that's okay, because my character is from there. When we go there, I can be like, hey, I can, and then we all disperse. So I didn't get to do my tour guide thing, but I could have done my tour guide thing and shown everybody kind of around Ubersreich. It's more the bigger metaphysical things. So when there are obvious signs of various chaos gods, and that Leopold, because he doesn't have lore chaos, doesn't know that that's an obvious sign. I'm like, I get that it's sketchy, but I don't quite get how sketchy it is. I know how sketchy it is. My character does not know how sketchy it is. And that is slightly problematic, because some of the stuff occasionally where we've gone on, you wouldn't know that. I then flick through the Life of Sigmar and go, I probably would have known that, actually. And where the line is in terms of lore theology, lore chaos is a little bit blurry anyway. But that being said, we're all in it to kind of serve the story. So, you know, if in doubt, I just ask Andy. Do I know that? No? Okay.
I think clearly what you're going to have to do is keep the Life of Sigmar with you all the time, like annotate it, and then open it up and just start reading it. I think you'll find in character, like as it says in the Life of Sigmar. That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Or you could get Lord Chaos. Yeah. That won't backfire at all.
That won't backfire in any way. My biggest problem, the thing that I don't have, and we'll maybe come to that. I've now got like 2 points in it, is lore magic, and that has been so hard because to me, especially like if she'd had a normal elven upbringing, I just feel like elves just know more of that stuff kind of as they just absorb it through their life, because the winds are just so much more visible to them and accessible to them, and they talk about them. So that's been really, really hard, because quite often I'll be like, oh, like I know what that could mean, and I know an implication, and then that could mean that. So yeah, that's been hard, but I've got lore magic now, and I'm just trying to work on it, save up some XP.
Yeah, and I've had the opposite kind of problem of like having to not watch any stuff that's I find interesting from the stream, because then I will learn more than my character does. So I'm in some self-imposed ignorance at the moment.
And can we just say, if you'd tour guided as effectively in Ubersreich as you did in Middenheim to get us to the bathhouse, like I think you would have got a pretty bad TripAdvisor review, much as you'll find going up about the Temple of Ulrich from Alamenowith and Yume very soon.
Say nothing.
Need thicker blankets. This is so hard. Daniel L., do you guys have ideas for backups in case one of your characters perish or retire in shame?
I got like 1 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every time I learn about a new group of people in the Warhammer world, I'm like, oh my god, I should totally make a character. I think, is it correct that if your character falls to the Dark Gods, reaches, is there like a mechanic for like if you reach a certain corruption level or whatever, like you lose your character?
You mean like in chess? So do we like become a queen once we get to the other side of the board? Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And once we get enough corruption points, we just cash them in and we become mega powerful.
I think if you get in too many mutations, you become a chaos spawn, in which case you become mindless. And just depending on what mutations you get, your character may become unplayable. Like if you got one that made you look like a demon, for instance, you had big wings and horns and stuff, like you just you can't operate in the campaign anymore. You can't walk down the street without people attacking you or fleeing in terror. So yeah. But if you do get a mutation, if it's not an obvious one, then you can, survive for a while, as long as you don't have any, zealous party members who might burn you.
You might be fine.
Yeah. And I think if you just rolled really badly on the mutation D1000 table, you might just like, I also, if I mess up my path, like I'll just like probably become a demon of Slanesh and just be possessed immediately and start laying into the rest of the party. So,
please don't do that.
Support me in my spiritual goals, guys, I guess. I've got lots of ideas. We've met a few of them already. But if I didn't play one of the ones that we've already met or seen, I don't really think about future characters, so I don't have any new ideas at the moment. I become quite focused on the one that I'm on, and I'm just trying to make sure she lives for as long as possible at the moment. Quick for Sage, what has it been like working with Andy to work on fleshing out Warhammer and upon? To me, at least, that sounds very intimidating, but also exciting.
I mean, a little bit intimidating in the sense that obviously Andy knows a lot about Warhammer, but I hang out with everyone every week, so as people, they're lovely. So that makes it very easy to approach. And I think he values my ideas and my insight into Japanese culture and the bits that I want to bring over into Nippon and the research that I've done to kind of support that. So yeah, it's been more collaborative than I thought it could be, depending on the person, because he's super up for hearing what I have to say, and then he figures out how that all fits in. And a lot of the time, the part about, oh, so in Warhammer, this is what it means, he doesn't even tell me, because then I don't have to like worry about metagaming. So at the moment, whatever we've world built together, Yume knows pretty much. So I don't have to worry about any of that being a problem. But I haven't told, the cast or like talked about it on stream. So I'm sure there'll be some fun things to drop every now and again. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. We get sidetracked and stay up until like 3 a.m. talking about like army, like stats for her family members and stuff like that.
Watchdog asks, hi, question just popped in one, had for a while. What is the deal with Alamenowites? We don't abbreviate the wife. Chiquita, you and I. No, it's Luchita. Is she truly bad? Or right, so there's a missing stream that Andy and I like redid 2 or 3 times, and then the computer broke, so we lost it anyway, and we're gonna have to do it again, and it kind of fills in so people can understand the evolution of the Greta Alamenowife thing, and that told you a little bit more about Luchita and about that relationship and how that had come to be and how that came through. So I can't answer if she's truly bad. I would say, though, in Andy Law's world, you'll very rarely find someone who's truly bad. I think they're always complicated people who have their own reasons for why they're doing the right thing and why they think they're in the right. So, but Andy and I have planned that stream out, and we're hoping to do it soon. We've just been put off because it's so hot in here. It's hard for us to do that filming. So we will do it soon. So watch this space for that. Lore Master says, can't wait for the campaign to show the full ramifications of the bathhouse incident to be unveiled. Truly the Civil War instigator of LAWhammer. Yeah.
Yep.
Interestingly, there has been a previous bathhouse incident in Alamenowithe's life that might come up in that side stream as well. In the last side stream that Sage and I did, I'm just super annoyed that there was no opportunity to draw Ulrich's attention to his in tray so he could read the letter I sent him protesting my treatment previously at a Temple of Ulrich when I was previously accused of a crime I didn't commit. So hopefully, hopefully he'll get that any day soon.
Yeah, I'm sure that will make him real happy.
Yeah.
If not, you'll just have to update your TripAdvisor review. So.
Oh, I will be. Yeah. We've covered this a little bit, but Catalars says, do you know what's going to happen if one of your characters runs out of fate points and then dies for good? Do you roll a new character, or are you backbenched or something else? We certainly wouldn't backbench a cast member. We've all signed up for it. Yeah, we die immediately. Alamenowife dies, I die.
Yeah, did you not realise that was in the contract, Sage, when you signed up? I mean, I think one option Andy has spoken about before is like there are certain NPCs that get introduced that could easily be sort of taken on if people like that. I personally hate that, but some people do like it. But as I said, like I've got like probably 8 or 9 loose concepts floating around in my head and ways that they could be kind of like looped in that I try not to think about unless I actually read them, at which point I'd have a conversation with Andy and we'd work out what was the one that would fit best in terms of dynamics and lead to the most interesting stories. And, yeah.
for Lindsay and Andy something, although I think this actually, I'm quite interested to hear your answer, Sage, given Yume's connection with Renald. I've been wondering what Alemenowith and Leopold look like devoted to another deity like Cain or Myrmidia or Manan or Raya or Tal. Very interesting.
Wow, I mean, you know, if Leopold was devoted to Tal, he may, you know, have a little bit more of his father's appearance about him, perhaps.
That's like Talite slander.
Just saying.
Like,
Run away into the forest to be some kind of beast man.
Yeah.
King.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've had another character that was Myrmidian that indeed may potentially pop up in a future campaign. Yeah, I don't like. I think I don't actually think that would work with Leopold because he's been entirely envisaged as being a Sigmarite, and he'd been raised in the cult, and it's so central to kind of like who he is that to imagine him devoted to any other deity would be a ground up rebuild of the character. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think equally for Alemenowith, because of the unique nature of Ladriel and being on the path of shadows, she couldn't have been in this part. She couldn't fulfill the function in this party if she was devoted to if she was on another deity's path. But I will say that just because she's walking in the path of Ladriel, what that means for her, it means that she evokes Ladriel and she considers Ladriel's actions, and she tries to keep her soul in the, if you've looked at the path rules, she tries to keep her soul under that protective ozone layer that Ladriel provides in the aether. But she also acknowledges the other elven gods. So we saw in Bergenhafen that she was making, you know, offerings to Isha, and she will occasionally, if she's feeling particularly warlike, or she will pop on a rune of Kaine. She will paint her hand. In one episode, I think I don't think I mentioned, but like one of her hands is just painted red because she's like, right, someone's for it tonight. And there's been a few other times where I've tried to like subtly show in the face paint I've been wearing, or in the things that Alemenowith has said, that she's actually doing things related to other elven gods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's lots to play around with, like the Nipponese gods as well, and how they relate to the ones that, you know, everyone else uses, because obviously, are they separate? Are they the same? I don't know yet. Andy probably does, but I don't. So yeah, for example, but she also kind of like Alemenowith, she will pray to the relevant god, that like most people do, because it's a polytheistic culture, right? But for example, in the side stream that we just did recently, one of the reasons why Yume wanted to go to a bathhouse is because one of the gods in Nippon, who their avatar is kind of like a cat, their sacred place is a bathhouse, and it's a place where others and kind of figure things out and do self-reflection. So I try to kind of like tie those things in narratively, even if we don't have loads of time to really focus on it in the stream, because obviously there's 6 players. But yeah, I also like Manan. If I had to remake her some kind of seafaring person, would be fun.
Yeah, we met a seafaring person in a pre-stream side stream who was a really cool character, who was actually the sister of one of my old characters. Lore Master says Talite Leopold is just a very, very hairy man. Do you think, like, so hairy he gets an extra point of armor, like Lucas and his leathery skin, maybe?
Yeah. And an extra success level on endurance test to resist the cold.
Yeah.
Like one of those, you know, those cats that you like put them underwater and suddenly they're like 2 sizes smaller. And what you were expecting, like Leopold, it's his normal size, but then he looks like he's much wider because of the extra fur.
Do you have any wider cultural touchstones that you use for your characters? For example, I'm playing a dwarf investigator in acronyms are my kryptonite, by the way. In something
Realms?
game. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, thanks. So pull a lot of inspiration from early 1900s crime fiction. What about you guys? I have a few things I do, but
I mean, I did a little bit at the start, but it's entirely gone by the wayside. But a late season John Locke from Lost was sort of a touchstone for Leopold, in terms of he had this like just quiet confidence, like he wasn't overbearing with his faith, but just was quietly confident in everything he did. And then, you know, the whole augur thing derailed all of that. But yeah.
I just started watching The Acolyte last night, and so when Andy Law and I watch things, we quite often watch it through the frame of reference of some characters we're playing, or we imagine that the characters. And last night, in the first two episodes of The Acolyte, the headcanon was the Jedi were all elves because they're like such dickheads. It's just so much better than everyone else, but in a really like annoying way, but also the way they treat other people. But for me, cultural touchstones I use the music that was popular when I was a teenager, or that I liked when I was a teenager, to get myself into the headspace of Alamenowith, a perpetual teenager who feels everything like it's the first time, and thinks that everything revolves around her, and is constantly overreacting to things. So.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think I probably do a lot more of like not cultural touchstones, but just like personal. Haha, I have the screen now. Like personal references to things I've done, or you know, the feeling of being somebody from a different country, you know, like all that kind of stuff probably takes precedence, although I'm sure some of my ideas of what it means to be Japanese, Nipponese, probably does come from media, because I grew up in the West, so my understanding of that is probably a bit different from a person who grew up there. I also, this was after the stream started, but we were talking about Blue-Eyed Samurai when it came out, and yeah, I think that one definitely, especially with the new information that came out about Yume, definitely feels relevant. And I also just like the way Japan was portrayed in it. So
I really like Blue-Eyed Samurai. I can't pronounce anything tonight. Are there any TV shows or games that you guys are really into at the moment?
The Bear.
You are really into that. Like your discussions about the Bear, like the spoilers are just like paragraphs long. I'm like, what's this guy saying about this TV show that doesn't sound like very much happens in it?
It's really, really good. It's really well put together, and I think part of the reason why there's been such detailed chat about it is the sort of the consensus in kind of reviews that season 3 is not as good as the first two seasons, but I don't think that's a fair judgment. It's different, and that's sort of the point. Like it maybe is slightly less satisfying to the audience, but that's the point, because the character is doing that with this restaurant, and so stylistically the show is doing the same thing and mixing things up more than is probably expected, but in order to put you in the same destabilized headspace. I think it's incredibly clever, and you can argue that it's not effective or not convincing, but I don't think you can argue that it's not as good. And so that's why we've had quite a lot of quite detailed sort of spoilery chat about it. So yeah, I love it. And The Acolyte as well. Yeah.
I haven't watched either of those, actually. I found The Bear too stressful, and I'm already stressed enough in my life.
Yeah. I haven't watched The Bear for that reason, because Andy Law watches things for me, like he does test watches. So to tell me if he thinks I'll like them or not, only in certain cases. Sometimes we just watch things that I want to watch, but that one he was like, nah, like it's just too much.
I don't know. I don't have much time for watching things.
No.
When I have time at the moment, I'm working through House. You know, as just like a funny kind of in the background sort of show. I watch like the latest anime that comes out, you know, So I'll be watching that usually, but I don't have like things I'm obsessed about at the moment.
We just finished watching like every single series of Taskmaster. We just like watched them all in a row that were available on Netflix. And I like that because living in the house that I do, like everything that any of us do, like feels like it could be something that's being done on Taskmaster. Like the other day, I was like decided that I wanted to compost something. So like I just started like biting it and spitting it into the compost thing, and I'm like, am I on Taskmaster? Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? So yeah, I like Taskmaster because it feels like my real life constantly.
Well, although saying that, I really enjoyed Delicious in Dungeon recently. That was good.
Yeah. I found that, so I've got a really low disgust threshold, especially about food that is weird creatures. So as you can imagine, Delicious in Dungeon, it goes back to the time when I didn't have a TV when I was growing up, but sometimes I got to watch TV and I watched like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and you know the scene where like there's like the live snakes inside the thing. What? So because of that, like I have real problems with stuff. So I really had to like gather all of my strength to watch that show, but I watched it because one of the elf character is like the Alamenoid of that group, just like constantly like, how could you do that? Why are you doing this? This is awful. I don't like the smell. I don't like the taste. Please stop now. Yeah. So I really leaned on that for inspiration for Alamenoid. Mornington Crescent. Oh, this isn't a question, but I'm going to read out. I have flashbacks to Chaos in the Old World. One of my friends was convinced it was biased and insisted a set group of 4 play it in every permutation of who plays who twice to see which side was biased. Then I helpfully pointed out that he won 50% of the game, skewing the results. I had things thrown at me. I think it is. I think it is true that there are certain gods that are easier to win with if you're not as experienced as the game. So it does make a big difference which god you're playing and whether you know the tactics that work and who you're playing against.
I have said when we get the map cam up and running, I think as a side stream at some point we should have the cast playing Chaos in the Old World. I think that'd be a fun little side stream to do.
This goes back to the question about lying. I think they're very different circumstances, but how does Leask feel when Andy does the same to you? Is it a similar process? No, it's very different. That's just the consequences of Andy Leask's bad decisions.
Yeah, and very much sprung on me as well. Although to be fair, like there was I got a choice. It was like either that's what happened or that isn't what happened, right? So had I said no, I'm not comfortable with the idea that my character has been played by someone else for a while, Andy wouldn't have made that what happened. He would have made something else what happened. I don't know what his trapdoor plan was, but I know he had a trapdoor plan instead. But I was like, no, screw that. That's a good story. Let's do that.
Yeah, and I did make it sound kind of clear cut when I was talking before. It's not really clear cut in that what you have to kind of remember when you're role playing is that the story is a constant evolution, and there's always it's like happening from the perspective of the characters, but it doesn't necessarily represent the objective reality of a world you're in, especially when that world has an aether.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the party will successfully prolong the end times?
I don't think we'll delay it. I think we'll prolong it. Yeah.
I think it'll come sooner. Everything so far, according to the cultists that we get little snapshots of, suggests that everything's happening more quickly than they planned. So it looks like the end times are coming sooner than they thought.
Whoopsie.
What's next? During the character rebuild, what skills or talents did you feel your characters absolutely needed to better fit with your playing?
Gonna have to bring up my character sheet.
I mean, I lent a lot more into the augury side of things, and regret that choice for so many reasons. Partly because I've ended up making him significantly worse at fighting than he was at the beginning of the campaign, and I hadn't quite clocked that. Until like he's okay as long as he's standing next to someone else with drilled, but if he's not, he's actually significantly worse than he was at the beginning of the campaign, which could represent him being rusty because he's not been doing as much
or
of that.
having,
But
I don't know, lost his eye.
but he mechanically hasn't though. Mechanically, he can still proceed. So that's just and like at a certain point, probably now, like he's about to pivot back into the warrior priest career and immediately put his weapon skill up just enough to make him back to kind of where he was before, and then that kind of balances things out. But I also took there were some skills and things that I kind of bumped up, things that I had raced through on the first career because I wanted to get to the next tier to unlock something cool. I then went, oh well, actually I'm going to go back and take a second rank in that talent or a third rank in that talent because that's a less exciting thing to do because it's not something new, but it actually does pay dividends in terms of the depth of the character. So that's what I mostly did.
I'm sure there were a couple for me, but the thing, LAWhammer is just hilarious because like she didn't have perfect pitch the first time through, but then she did the second time, which means if you think about it, like she's purposefully playing that flute badly. Like and it's really hard when you're role playing to ever want your character to do something badly. So I think that's been quite good because her cover is like she's in cover as a flute player and she's shit at it, but she's not actually that bad at it. But she is bad compared to other elves. So it's just with her, I just embrace every change as like another layer that comes off. I mean, obviously, I needed perform Baudillery at a higher level to achieve the success in Middenheim.
It's a way of flying under the radar, right? Because if you were too good, people would notice you.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're not that good, you're blending in with these shit human musicians who don't know what they're doing. So you've got to sound equally bad, otherwise you'll stick out. Yeah,
exactly.
I think for me, I don't think I had it the first time around. I can't remember now, but Stealth Aether was really important. Then to get Silent Step, the talent in it as well, I think adds a lot of like flavor to her character. So that was really important for her, and all the relevant like sneaky and pickpockety sort of skills I couldn't do without. But she's actually like now looking at a character sheet, like she's got 20 advances in quite a lot of things. It's just that like her starting skills were just average to begin with, so like she's not that good at them. But
still no low theology, right?
Yeah, but I've not had a place to pick it up. Like the Ranaldons, yes, okay, but other than you teaching
literally
me about
got a talent teacher, literally
theology.
can teach you it for less.
I think that's what Stealth Aether I picked up as well on the second way through, which is just like so vital for the path that she's on. And I think it was just like the path and the hadn't been developed when I went through it the first time. But the elf bullshit thing is that their attributes are better. So actually, like when another player, I'm quite lucky because it doesn't feel like there's skills that are really low, even though like I've got lore magic now and okay, it's an advanced skill, so that doesn't really count. But like basic skills, because your basic attributes are quite high, is quite handy. Obviously, we pay in other ways. Constantly having to smell things.
Being insufferable, that kind of thing.
Being insufferable.
Nobody liking you, that type of
yeah. I've lost where we are, but is it this one? I think it is. What have been your biggest oh shit moments in the campaign so far?
So many.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we almost always have at least one an episode, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And also, it depends what you mean by oh shit moment. Is it like a oh shit, or it's like a oh shit? You know, like the tone of that oh shit is very different. Because feeding the fox to that spirit was definitely like a oh shit moment.
Having dinner with at the Wittgenstein Castle with Lady Wittgenstein and a vampire, knowing that we had like just trashed her little museum was like the worst experience. I felt so bad.
As Yume sitting there still with the thing, and we're like, you've got to give it back. I don't want to give it back. Gotta give it.
Well, I still had it as well, and I've kept that. I'm like, you're not getting that back. That's not yours. You don't have a right to an elven waystone. But yeah, that was like, I was just like, how did we get here?
I did, like, for me, in my Ubersreich side stream, there were like two in relatively rapid succession. Like, one of them was when I found out that Dabernick planned to assassinate Emmanuel Nacht, because it was like, oh, I've just had something that potentially could have very devastating effect on the Empire, and there's no one else around to talk to. I just have to decide whether to warn her or not. And spoiler, I did. And honestly, on hindsight, she's probably smart enough that she probably already knew, but still.
But you don't know that. Like,
exactly. And morally, it's the right thing to do. So happy with that. But then the other one was at the point, and I cannot believe that it had not occurred to me, that Andy would use the Vendelin adventure hook, which obviously I wrote for the Ubersreich book. And it had not occurred to me that Andy would use that hook for my character, even though it's the most obvious, perfect sort of setup. And there was a moment when she was like, well, about that. and in my head, I'm like, oh, I know what's going to happen. So yeah, that was quite nice. Seeing something I'd written, being conscious of the fact that something I'd written was about to kind of come out on screen. That was quite nice. Yeah.
Nice.
I had a weird experience watching your side stream because I saw the clip recently and I hadn't watched it to the end. And so when they're talking about like Newfalyoung Inc. and Vendelin Inc. and they're talking about a side business, I heard Inc. as INC Incorporated, and I was so confused. I was like, why does Newfalyoung have its own like limited company? Like, that's not a thing in Warhammer. And why would Vendelin be setting up a rival Vendelin Inc.? Like, I was so confused. I had to go back and watch from the beginning. And I was like, oh, I hadn't watched this bit before. And then I was like, oh, Inc. Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Meeting
Al Ulrich was terrifying as well.
Oh my god, yeah. That was terrifying. There's been a few moments. I think there's a question later about like things you regret. And one thing I regret is when we were in Bergenhafen and we got the chance to speak to Johannes Tjugen, but everyone came in. And so Alan Menowith couldn't have like a proper conversation with him because he was like, who are all these people? And then obviously because we were all in the room, people started chipping in as they do. And he was just like, oh my God, get the fuck out of here. And she honestly, her regret, she thinks if she'd gone in by herself because of their previous relationship, she could have talked to him. She could have, and because she had what she was going to say, like, look, I know you've been told things, but it's more serious than you think and you're in trouble and I can help you. And she was going to do a real appeal to him. And she genuinely thinks that she could have got him to not do the thing. And so that's a big regret of hers. I mean, I think probably she's completely mistaken. And
she certainly would have got more words out, I think.
I think she would have got more words out, and at least she would have been able to appeal to him in the way that she planned to appeal to him.
Yeah.
Maybe less running around because he might have told us more stuff before kicking us out.
Yeah. Have there been any particular enjoyable or memorable NPCs thus far? Loads.
Yeah.
Loads.
I'm trying to think who in particular.
I think people often think that Andy Law like plans NPCs like Lucas or like Spengler to be the ones that we will take on, like they're Andy Law's like ideal one that he wants to play, and it's genuinely not like that. He has in his mind like all of these hundreds, thousands of NPCs who are all, we've met loads of them, who are all detailed and interesting and different in different ways, and if we cling on to them, like they will come along with us. Like Lucas said, we could easily have had like Blutilda as a close companion who we'd kept after the barge, or Greta or whatever. And so I think some of the particularly enjoyable or memorable ones you already know because they're the ones that we keep with us. But it often looks to the outside viewer like they're with us because Andy Law decided, but genuinely not, I would say. In Lucas's case, we just really liked Lucas. and we kept him around, and much to like the detriment of Lucas's well-being, both spiritually and physically. Poor Lucas.
Poor Lucas.
Poor Lucas.
But yeah, who have you two liked?
I was trying to think if there was anyone that we haven't taken along with us that I wish we had, because like I like all the ones that we spent more time with because they're all great. But I'm trying to think.
I wish we could have taken. I wish that Gerhardt could have got engaged to Theodora Holzenauer, who we met at the. She's an engineer. I think they would have made a really good match. And when she arrived and Alemannoith was like, she was seriously considering trying some matchmaking there. So I would have liked it if they'd got engaged and we'd kept up a relationship with her.
Yeah, she was nice. I from Yume's first side stream, her friend, her Ronaldo friend, what did we name him? Frank? It's been so long now.
It was
Franz, maybe.
Franz.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think he would have been fun, I think, and I think it would have been an interesting comparison for Birdie as well, to see somebody who thinks similarly to her, and like she could have played off against him well as well. Not to like speak for Kath, but like I think it would have been an interesting story.
I think like for me the ones that have been most fun have actually been the standalone ones that we've played in the kind of flashback side streams, or like all of the ones that you guys played in Human School, or like
Human School.
I think maybe because those are slightly more experimental sessions, so things can be a bit looser. Like I've never had as much fun as playing Gerhardt's dad and punching everybody in the face. Like that was a lot, that was a lot of fun. And I think like the characters in those
go home, Sigismund. You're drunk.
100%. So like them, or like I think in particular the ones when we were in Magnus's small council, where like I was the elf and you were the dwarf. And Julius was there. Like all of those characters were all interesting. And that was good fun. So yeah, I do like the various appearances, sometimes unknown, sometimes known, that Alemannoith's master makes in his various ilks. He's good quality at any time. And Sigfeder, I really liked Sigfeder. Thought he was a really like interesting, different character, just like not what you expected. So yeah. What's next? LAWhammer goes off but quite a lot. How are you enjoying it compared to the as written version you've played previously? We've never played the as written version. We've always played it. Plus the version Andy Leask decided. And we're already further on than I've ever got before. So yeah.
Yeah, really.
I've been derailed twice en route to Middenheim. I've never made it to Middenheim. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and for me it's been really interesting. I've never really played super long campaigns. I usually play like before this like 6 to 12 week, maybe 24 week sort of campaign. So it's been quite a change for a lot of reasons.
Going back to did Leopold have holy visions when they met the other avatar, Lindsay? I will have to consult my notebook. I will get back to you on that. Is there a particular big bad you all are hoping to take down, face off, or conversely, a notable villain you're desperate to avoid? Not sure.
I mean, any of the actual Warhammer like big bads, I think, are too big for us.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like we're not big enough for them yet. Like we encountered like an orc, and it probably would have killed all of us.
And that was just like a normal, just an orc that happened to be out that day.
Yeah, like a scouting patrol orc. And
the ancient elves, like your Malekiths, your Marisiths, your Ariel, Orient, like they are just so off the charts powerful. that, Alamenowith does not want to meet any of her family anytime soon. Like, you're just like ants compared to them. Archeon, no thanks.
Well, we already have, right? We've already met him.
Well, have we?
It'd be cool to get strong enough to fight like Sister Admiranda or whatever she became, sort of levels of stuff, but I don't think we're quite there yet either.
Yeah. Good question. What happens when you max out sin points? Like, I don't think you can you really?
Well, I mean, if you get to 10,
is there a maximum?
If you get to 10, you'll get a Wrath on the Gods every single time you use it. Now, if you never do a pray test, then it's irrelevant. You could theoretically keep racking them up forever and just never do a pray. But each sin point adds plus 10 onto the Wrath of the Gods test, and a result of 150 kills you. So if you've got 15 sin points and you roll a Wrath of the Gods, you're definitely dead. Like, there's a 100% chance of being dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you can't spend a fate point?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Hang on.
I thought the Wrath of the Gods rules were also that sometimes the GM can just do them as well. Like, it's not just
you can if you did something particularly egregious, then yeah.
So if you were trying to rack up sim points but not trigger a Wrath of the Gods, that'd be a very fine line to walk.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, only once has Leopold had a Wrath of the Gods imposed on him. But where it's mostly just been sin points, and then the Wrath of the Gods have come when he's rolled. And that's the thing. Like, I'm now at the point of like, and this is part of the problem of where he is at right now. And one of the reasons why we kind of almost need to get into a fight. Is because he can't do his divinations, which is what he was doing a lot of before. And he probably would have done a divination and got a Wrath of the Gods and burned some of these sin points off. But because he doesn't have his divination tools, he can't do that now, which means his sin points are slowly creeping up. And the only way to get rid of them really is in play is Wrath of the Gods. Like, if in downtime you could go away and do a penance or a pilgrimage or something and maybe get rid of one. But it's not a practical way of getting rid of them. Wrath of the Gods is the best way to get rid of them. But you need to be doing pray tests to make that happen. So,
best way seems a little bit, considering what's happened to him. But
yeah, I'm basing that literally on what Andy said. Like, literally being told like penances and things are not a practical way for a PC to get rid of sin points during play.
Although it makes sense
in an NPC world, it would. Like, exactly, you go away for 6 months and do like a big long pilgrimage, but you can't do that as part of a party. That it's not practical. So, for the same reason that I can't progress into the next level of Augur, because to become a prophet, I need to be in one place and have a big gaggle of followers, and that's not conducive to the partying lifestyle. So
or I mean, do you have to be in one place, or would you just have to have loads of people following you around, which is also not conducive to the way we live?
I think it's kind of implied that you have. I think actually technically, even to be the one that I'm in right now, I'm supposed to have a place. But at the time, I was on the barge, and we counted that as a place.
I'm going to get a power lead because I have neglected to plug myself in. So this was the one. If you could go back and do one thing differently in the campaign, what would it be? So have another thing.
Interesting. I mean, I suspect most people would expect me to say the shadow thing. But actually, like, I knew at the time when I did that was the stupid decision, but I also knew it was a decision that would lead to interesting stories. And that's ultimately what we're doing. So I wouldn't change that because it was stupid, but it did lead to interesting stories. Probably I wouldn't have made the switch into Augur, I think. If I had known the mechanics of it, like when it happened during the stream, it was, you just need to go into that. You just need to. So it was very much pitched to me as, I'm pivoting across to a similar brass tier career. I'll be in it for like 500-600 XP, and then I'll be able to move on. And then it's like, oh no, actually, you need to complete that career. Oh no, actually, you need to take this as well. And actually, really, it's the next level of the career you need to take. And it grew and grew and grew and grew. Plus, the career's been rewritten, adding in cool stuff. It's cool stuff. Not a bad problem when you're on the Augur career to have it. But it become a much bigger part of Leopold's existence than I really wanted it to be. It's really got away from who the character was supposed to be. So that's probably what I would have done differently.
But then again, it maybe links back to the thing I was saying about like life happens to our characters, right? and
Yeah, but it's more just it's taking it away from the stuff that was like what was fun about the character to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and he's gone from being the character I wanted to be, who had the quiet confidence, into the character who's doubting and second guessing everything, which sure is a perfectly valid arc, but it kind of happened too early. Like, I feel like now is where it would have been good for him to switch into Augur rather than when he did. If he'd been a warrior priest the whole way through, and then now something happened that pushed him into Augur, that would feel like a better arc to me. It just happened too early in his journey, I think, for what I would have wanted to do with him as a character. But,
yeah, I think I'm the same for the Fox shenanigans. I really enjoyed them, and like totally, respect consequences of my actions and stuff like that. I'm not complaining, but I think potentially it would have been nice for her to learn about her religion and her family past and stuff with the Fox still being around, and being able to like test things out and try things, and then for it to go all wrong. I still think she was quite attached and people liked the Fox, and there was that payoff of being really sad that it had to go away. But I think it would have been better had we waited a bit longer. But I just fucked up.
it happens.
So there's some. I think having to complete the career was part of the initial pitch. The second level, not the third.
Yeah. So like basically, it was as we were doing it, because we didn't have the career rules in front of us. The particular talent that I had to take was in the third level of the career, not the second level. So you just need to go into the second level. Blah 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 blah, and I was like, okay. I was like, I've got quite a lot of those. So I looked at the career and went, I've got loads of those things already. I'll complete it really quickly. And then we realized, no, the talent you need to take is in the third level, which Andy hadn't realized as well at that point. And then it was like, well, you kind of need to. And then by that point, I was in the third level, and then the careers got rewritten anyway. And then there was a whole bunch of new cool stuff. And it's not like I've not been shanghaied or anything. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that the decision had a bigger impact on who Leopold is
than you expected it to.
Exactly. And it's sort of pulled them in a direction that isn't the direction I was particularly interested in. So
yeah. Just going back to the Fox thing, I think as well, what I felt with that Fox thing, that whole like cascading sequence of events that happened. And I was saying to you today that I regretted, not out of character, when Andy was like, right, if you roll a 8, 9 or 10 or a 10, like the Fox goes one step back to good. And I only remembered after the stream had ended, because Yume had quite a lot of fate points, and there's the option to use a fate point to fix the roll. Like, I was like, oh, I should have suggested that, because then it kind of would have stopped potentially all of those cascades, and the Fox would have come back. So I think it was just that whole period of time from the point we got into that castle to going out was just like, it was like, I don't know, one of those major catastrophes where everything fails at once. And so the consequences are so much worse. It was like Chernobyl, basically, that castle.
I mean, it was a deeply messed up place.
It was.
In so many ways.
Fits, narratively, so I'm happy with it. But yeah, I think it could have been interesting to try it differently.
Yeah, there's a few that I wish I would go back and do differently, but now I can't remember what they are. But I'm like always like that. I'm like, maybe I should have done this, and maybe I should have done that, which is like Alamenoid's problem. She's just got to like move forward. McQuick says, have you guys ever discussed having guest players on for a short stint? The person who is going to play the dwarf princess, for example. I think maybe Andy Law would have to answer, but we have talked about it. Yeah.
Like, I think we're talking about potentially doing something at Chimera, maybe in the future. Maybe trying to rope some authors into play or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think there is a top tier patron level, right, where you can come along and be a guest player. Isn't that right? Yeah,
I don't know if it's in person though. Like if you're in Edinburgh, you could, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Shall I have a look?
We're not as close to the patron because we don't like have full access to it quite rightly, because the GM blogs go up and lots of spoilers go up on there. So that would be something that Andy Law.
Yeah, we're literally not allowed to back our own patron thing so that we don't get to see the secrets.
We can follow it, and do it for free.
Only at the basic level, yeah.
But why would we back our own when patron take all that money off? Why would we not just give money to ourselves? Like, that wouldn't make any sense to pay.
you can, the top, is it the top tier? No, the second top tier, just below God of LAWhammer. Twice a year, and we'll run a one-shot game full of extreme awesome. And if you join us in that tier, you get to be part of it.
Yeah, so that's a one-shot game that's not necessarily LAWhammer the show streamed, because I don't think everyone who paid for that would necessarily want to be like in public. So I think that's a discussion fair. If you go for that. Yeah. How long did you all expect to be in Middenheim? I mean, we've only been in like out of character or in character, because in character we've only been there for 6 days, and we've already fucked things up.
Big style. It feels like a lot longer because we've had quite a lot of off weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
Because like we've like in the real world we've been there since like May, April, but we've had quite a lot of like 2 weeks off. So yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting question. If you think back to the start of episode 1, who of the 6 characters would you have thought would fall to chaos first?
Birdie.
Episode 1.
Well, episode 1. No, I'm thinking pre-stream.
Episode 1, Gerhardt, 100%. He's got all the hallmarks of people who fall to chaos. He's really intelligent.
Is that like the mutants and the crashed coach and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Gerhardt.
Yeah, 100% Gerhardt. And just like generally at the start of it, if I had to pick someone, I think it would have been Gerhardt.
Yeah. Because I was thinking Birdie, and the information that has sort of come out, recently for the audience that we knew from the pre-stream of when we encountered Lucas and what Birdie did for her kind of masters and stuff, just the sheer willingness to do awful stuff early on. I'm like, that's not going to last long. But I think we've been generally a good influence on her. I think. Marginally less murderous than she was before.
True. A varied influence. We've shown her different ways to live.
Yeah. Now I think it's less about she's less murderous. It's just she understands that the consequences could be bad.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily making someone better?
That she wants to do more murdering, like all of the time.
Yeah, but she says it, but she doesn't do it as much. She talks more about her murderous intents rather than just murdering, and I feel like that's progress.
True. I mean, Castle Wittgenstein for her was also quite like quite a significant moment. I think if she had a murder quota, she probably went into debit there, so she has to hold that for a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of red on her ledger, to quote the Avengers,
Yeah, Observato. Hi all. For the side streams, how much do you prep for the characters, for example, for Human School? About 15 minutes, depending on who gets there first.
Andy takes us aside and goes, "You're playing, blah, blah, blah." You're like, okay.
So sometimes not even that. If you arrive a little bit later, because of you've got a message on Discord, read it, let's go.
I've been prepping all my life for this. Sometimes we're lucky in that they're characters that we've met before or we've even played before. If you're Andy and me and you've played around the Warhammer world for a while, so that can be interesting, because then Andy Law can say like, that person, you know what they're like, this iteration of them, this incarnation of them is like subtly different for these reasons. But yeah, we don't have very long to prep. This was an answer to when we were talking about Delicious in Dungeon. This came out up the Singemeister. Someone's currently playing a fairy in a D&D game. Why is it so fun to play stroppy yet charming, selfish, mercurial weirdos?
You get to be more of yourself.
Yeah. How many times have you wanted to give a PC a smack upside the head? Like multiple times per episode.
I mean, I have. That's what, like, Leopold has literally slapped Gerhardt upside the head on at least 2 occasions. So.
Gerhardt, Elric to shut him up when he's saying something ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. It's mostly that pair. To be fair, it's mostly that pair.
And it's gotten worse since they're now sitting next to each other and they can giggle to each other about
Although I think that's better, because I think what it does mean, Andy will probably like it less because they're whispering and not speaking on stream. What it does mean is that they're it's like an outlet for their nonsense, so that it doesn't come out in character. You know, like it burns off the silliness rather than it coming out.
Yeah, before it just ended up being scribbled on my notes because I was sitting between them, and so their common area was my piece of paper.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
So you were less Switzerland, more than no man's land in the Western Front. Yeah.
Yeah. So Radivir, for Sage, what was going through your mind when Andy gave you the choice between Ronald and the Fox in the recent side stream?
Can I just say before you answer, I really felt for you in that moment. That felt very much like you can decide now, you can become an augur, and if you are, then your visions definitely come from Sigmar. It felt like that kind of moment where I was like, oh, I know how much pressure that is. So
yeah. Oh, that was because we just spoken about it, like Lindsay and I, before the stream, about how, how does she feel about Ronald? Would I want to go back? Like I'd already started thinking about it a little bit, but being like, Andy didn't warn me that he was going to do it. I don't even know if he knew he was going to do it until we got there. So to have the choice kind of thrust upon me was a little bit scary. But other than the in my head, at the end of the day, like, Ronald is the known quantity out of the two options, and as much as I'm sure the other one would have been a cool story to play through as well, I think there's still much she wants to learn and do as a Ranaldon, so she can fall to chaos some other time. I'm sure it'll be fine.
But on her own terms, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody smack Birdie because she's too tall to reach.
I think Alamanawite and Leopold could manage.
I think the thing about Birdie is that Birdie does understand, like that would be effective on Birdie. It would either shut her up because she recognized your dominance, or it would lead to you getting stabbed. So it would be like one or the other.
Yeah, you roll your dice. Yeah.
Andy, have you considered using your augur skill set towards combat, like predicting enemy action?
I mean, like in a practical sense, like that's what the divination reroll might represent. So if it's not written like super explicitly in terms of specifying what the test is, but Andy makes me specify when it needs to be specified. But like if I'm doing a divination test on, say, Leopold to give me a kind of a reroll, be like, well, what are you divining about Leopold's feature? So it might be like, oh, successfully finding a thing. Then any test that contributes towards that, I can use that kind of reroll on. So I could and have used that for combat. So be like, oh, for the upcoming fight, to make sure that goes well, I'll do a divination, and then I've got a reroll. And that's kind of what that represents, that Leopold gets some kind of omen, some kind of foretelling about something that's going to happen, that in the moment he's like, oh, I've seen this, and so he moves, and that gives him an advantage or kind of whatever. That's really mechanically the only way it can really work. Like augury as a talent just tells you if something is good, bad, or neutral. What else have I got? Visions. I mean, you could look at somebody that you intended to kill and try and get a vision of their future to see whether you successfully killed them. But I have a feeling that wouldn't really work the way that we might want it to work in a kind of a combat scenario. So really, I think it's just a divination reroll. And because I don't have my divining tools right now, that's not an option for him. So
Sage has got to go very shortly. So there's just a couple more questions. So Smiling Tom said, I had a big laugh with the walk under Morsley in Vogenhafen using a lead sarcophagus and Leopold as a guide. Has the show toned down on goofery, or is it just now there's so much going on? Yeah, I definitely don't think we've toned down on the goofery.
No, definitely not. There's been plenty of goofiness going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
but there is a lot going on, and it is serious now.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like we've had Lucas like almost die and us have to pretend he's dead. We've had Nils die. We've had Schmeehammer badly injured. We've had the paranoia of us, Birdie. We've had the paranoia of some of us potentially running the risk of being replaced and all that kind of concern that goes with it. So I think there's just been too much on for the goofiness that kind of come to that.
I mean, I point you back towards how a few episodes ago, like not so long ago, when we were horrified at the shouts of butter coming from our kitchen. Like the silliness has not gone away. It's just Middenheim has been a time.
I need the mind bleach again.
Yeah. And Yume and Alan Menowith have got some goofiness up their sleeve to come, so we might get to see that. Yeah. Most difficult fight in the campaign so far?
Ooh.
The orc was pretty bad.
The
Yeah.
the one did we do?
The ogre at the bottom of Castle Wittgenstein.
I mean, that was so bad we didn't even fight it. We just ran away.
Exactly, multiple fate points, and then we were just like, "No, we're out."
Yeah, we're out. The Nurgle sausage one, was that done on stream or was that pre-stream?
I think that was pre-stream.
That was pre-stream.
Oh, that might have been pre-stream, yeah.
That was quite a tricky one because we had lots of different. So there was somebody who could kind of control us with their voice, and also someone else who had different kind of magical powers, and then also someone who was turning into a demon. So there was like lots of different threats, and it was really. And we thought, oh, we're sorted. We've combated that threat. We know what to. Oh my god, we're not ready for that. And there kept being, and I think we were quite clever then, but still they managed to get away from us. And there's no way Andy's going to throw that in our face in the future, is there?
I thought when we were in Bogenhafen in the sewers trying to fight that demon was hard as well, but mostly because Ed kept moving Gerhardt into the line of fire. We were like, stop!
Yeah.
And I think we also found out subsequently, we were all like, smash it with the tray. And Ed was like, no, why would I hit it with a tray? And we found out subsequently, I think Andy said like that tray was silver. It was probably like the only thing that would have hurt that demon. So yeah, he was trying to think his way around it. And all he needed to do was smash it with the tray he had in his hands. I think there's just two more. Let's just finish off. We don't really know the answer to this. But what's up with the basilisk? So the basilisk there's a tier, a patron tier where you can talk to Andy Law and discuss with him a walk-on part. And there's been quite a few of those that have come through. And I think the basilisk is based on somebody's lizard. That's what I think. So I can't wait to see more of the basilisk because it's like the most adorable thing. And I know that Leopold is a bit like, oh my god, a basilisk, and the rest of us are like, why didn't they bond with us? We want the basilisk. We want that little guy.
I think we need to clarify that. I think Andy is a bit like, oh my god, like this is one of the
totally.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting challenges, and it's great. And again, full love to whoever it is who owns the original Draco that kind of inspired this walk on NPC. But this is one of those rare situations where there was no collaboration with Andy. This was here's what's going to happen. You've got a baby basilisk now. I had no say over that at all. And I would absolutely have said no, thank you. And had I had any choice, I'd have been like, let it bond with any other PC, because I just don't think it fit. Again, it's another thing pulling Leopold away from what I really kind of wanted him to be. But it is what it is.
That's interesting in and of itself. Like, why do these things keep on pulling Leopold away? Like, is there an ulterior motive? Is fate working in that direction? I think we should explore that further. And then finally, what decision taken by a fellow PC has surprised you most? For me, right, having the option to lose your hand or a literal part of your soul, I was literally like screaming at the screen, like, choose the hand.
It was not pitched in those terms. Let's be clear.
No, it was not. But like you're in an etheric realm and someone asks to consume your shadow, and you're like, oh, that'll be fine because I don't really need a shadow. So I was like, oh my god, don't pick the shadow.
It made for a better story, but yeah, that's fair.
True.
That's my one.
When Alabama wife went and like attacked that cultist like witch and just full on went like stab. I think it really like shocked me because the whole tone of the episode up until then was quite silly, I think, and then to suddenly have murder happen was quite surprising. But like thinking back, it makes sense. But
I mean,
you were really taken aback. We're like both out of character, but also like you made the start of the next episode was like, what is going on? Like,
yeah.
Is she all right?
Well, that was it. Remember,
Like,
and then I asked you, and you explained it incredibly clearly to Leopold, and I'm like, yeah, no, she's fine.
Yeah, like really calmly, but like too coldly, really.
Yeah.
Like,
But you explained it tactically. You're like, well,
oh yeah,
they were a witch,
oh,
so I was
yeah,
worried they cast a
100%.
spell, so I had to stop them being able to speak. So what I did, I was like, well, yeah, okay, that checks
It
out.
made sense.
Seems
I
legit.
think it's because like Elemental up until that point had only really shot a bow, like from far away.
Yeah.
So to see her in close combat was quite different.
Yeah, I think for me, like either Birdie's little killing spree in Castle Wittgenstein, that kind of surprised me a bit. Probably shouldn't have, but did. But I don't know if this counts, but just like Elric not shutting up when he was talking to the Templar at the place in the Shining Rock, like talking to someone who is like a ranking cleric who is of noble blood, who clearly has an issue with you, and all he needed to do was just say nothing. That's all he needed to do. And he just wouldn't. He just kept double down, and we.
Yeah,
kept,
I thought that was brilliant. Like,
brilliant.
That,
but yeah.
But no, I get that. But I thought that was like that didn't surprise me because for the age Elric is and the kind of person he is and the upbringing he's had, I thought it was so on point that he wouldn't shut up. Like it didn't surprise me at all. I was disappointed maybe by the outcome, but did it surprise me? No. Yeah.
Oh, there's a good comment there, Lindsay.
Funny. Well, one, he got the shadow back. Yeah, but did he get the piece of his soul back? The hand may not have been literal either. No, that's fair. It could have been his ability to act or to give to others. Of course, you never know.
That's true.
So I think I've pretty much got through all the questions we have, which is excellent. Thank you so much, Sage and Andy, for coming along, and also myself because I was here too. And
good job.
Good job, me. Thank you to everyone. Thanks to everyone who gave us super chats. Thank you to everyone who gave us comments and has joined us tonight. We're hoping that all of the cast will make a good recovery and will get well soon. And we will be back with you soon. We will leave Wolf King with the very last comment, and that is, who needs a soul? Indeed. Who needs a soul indeed? On that note, we say good night. Oh, hang on. Thank you for the Q&A. It would be cool if it could become a more regular thing. We will talk about that and we will get back to you. Until the next time, I don't say caw on this stream. I don't know what I say. Oh, yeah, we say...